The house questions and answers a suburban design. Forget about it being a modern home. One of the things I'm most proud of is that there's no such thing as a front yard, rear yard. The whole house is connected to yard. And the moment you come in, the gate opens up and voila, you have yard and house all together. That changed it all completely. So it's one of those things that I'm really proud of, because it's, instead of, coming up to the house, having a throwaway front yard, through this design I've recapitalized on that as being part of the experience of entering the home. The property that we're at, there was actually a house that existed here for years, and I lived across the street. I ended up befriending the caretaker, and I used to have a band, and I used to have her come see us play. As years went on, she said, you know what, the lady that lives here, we're gonna have to take her to hospice care. Are you interested in buying the property? Of course, what an amazing piece of land. The original idea was to take the house that was here, renovate it, and then maybe flip it, actually. Well, a company out of Canada, Quebec, contacted me, and it's a company called Bone Structure. And they make a system home, you would say. It's a kit of parts, but it's not a prefab home, and it's not a panel home. It's the structure only. So you get 90% recycled steel and pre-cut plywood sheathing, and that's it. The lot is 260 feet long. The house is 210 feet long, which is the length of 4 city buses. And it literally bridges over the brook, and it bridges nature. And so the idea is you start from one end, meander yourself all the way towards the back. In terms of design, there is a public to private as well. So everything in front of the brook is all the public side, everything behind is all the private side. This process to build this was really grueling, really difficult. So it's about a 5,000 square foot build. Typically on a flat lot, it would take me about 18 months to get something like this built. This was really difficult because we had the brook in the middle. You have to build from the back forward. You have to do things out of sequence. Typically you could bed the house and then go around it like a donut. Here we had to go from back to front. This took 3 years to build. So design was probably, and permitting, about 6 months. And again, we almost didn't even get the permit, so it was really, really difficult. This house, it is an engineering marvel, okay? So it has every type of building foundation you can have. The bridge itself, the bridge span is 65 feet using 2 steel beams that are the same as what is used for highways. The house itself is engineered, as I mentioned, out of all steel, 90% recycled steel. When you heard the construction on here, it sounded like a body shop because it was all air tools, like woo, 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 woo. No cutting. Reduction of waste is a big thing in construction, and we're very proud of that, because if it's in CNC machining at the factory, all the fall off of the steel gets recycled again for the next beam. Amazing. All the wood sheathing, the same thing. Cut apart, reformulated into new plywood. No cutting. The only time we did cutting would be drywall and finishes. Otherwise, reduction of waste. The thought that came to me was experiential, okay? So I'll put it that way. So what I mentioned before about the entry, it starts with the gate. And it starts with the experience of sound, even. And so the idea is the gate opens really slowly, and the magic begins. So then you're welcomed in, and you have the pavers that actually were a byproduct of this house. So as I mentioned, we work with like 75 different vendors. One of them is a company called Concrete Collaborative. But the idea is that, going back to it, it's experience. You come in and you drive over and you walk over and you get a certain bloop, 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 a certain kind of a sound. You continue through, there's the gravel. You walk that, you get the crunching sound. You start to hear the babbling of the brook. You start to hear the wind going through the trees. It's all these experiences that layer. And as I mentioned, music is really important. If you had to put a soundtrack to it, you would have like the big drums, boom, 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 the big sound, and that's the amount of energy that's being pulled into the human. As you're taking it all in, it's a sensory kind of overload. Nature, man-made, all of it coming together, almost like staccato. It changes your rhythm. You're slowing down as you're going into the private sector of the house. But the beauty of that is once you're at the other end and you're looking back, because of the angle and the spacing that we've crafted, you actually will get full privacy. You won't see your neighbor won't see you, and you have all the light you could ever want. Again, it's passive. The house is working for you, you're not working for the house. The big challenge of design, that came from within me, was how do you create so much variety and so much pull and interest in space within 20 feet by 10 feet for 210 feet, right? Without creating drama by, I'm gonna make this wall angled, I'm gonna put this, it's constrained, and that's it. And it doesn't rely on the materials. It relies on the space making, the sun. So that's my favorite trend is, we guys asked about where the sun sets, sun rises. That's it. That's the trend that I go off of, the sun rising and setting, and that's the architecture is a vessel of light. It recently got a historic landmark plaque, which is unheard of for a modern home. And a modern home it's built in 2019, and I should add in a community that's almost against modernism. It's all about historic preservation. And yet we're getting one of these plaques from the historic preservation, which is to me just a testament to the fact that you can create timeless design that connects to the neighborhood without disrupting the neighborhood, and in a way gives back to the neighborhood. So now we've defined Brookside, and this is the first kind of home that says that. I'm here, I'm at Brookside, and this is Bridge House. I take ownership of this home in that regard. Like that I am here as a steward of history, and to welcome people in, welcome people like you in, and I want to share the story. So I do that often. So it's not my home completely, right? It's always open in that sense. And so it takes a different place, and people ask me, like, how are you willing to do that? Because I signed up for that from day one. And so it's a unique home, and it suits me now. Fluidity is really important, and the one thing I guess adding to it is working with any client. When we do a home for them, what I try to really enforce and tell them is they're going to have uncomfortable moments. We could design the best thing for you, but there's always something that requires some motion, some adjustment, because it's different. We're not going to design what you had before. I consider myself quite lucky, very, very fortunate to be here and to be a steward for carrying this to the next generations.